Hello there, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, and wellness advocate from danaarcuri.com. And today's video discussion is about jealous siblings who aim to hurt you. And so I have read all of the comments, especially the ones involving toxic siblings on various YouTube videos of mine. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you who have reached out to me. You are sharing your story about your toxic siblings, and it has become so crystal clear that we are in this together, and we can understand that, together we are stronger. Together we are making a difference, and that we can understand that this just so happens to be the experience that we have been dealt in life. It's not something that we wanted, yet this has become our reality. And so before I start talking about the various experiences that I've had in regards to envious, jealous siblings, let's just focus for right now on what is jealousy, what is envy, what does it entail? So here we go. All right, so jealousy is when someone is envious, when someone is resentful of your good fortune, your success, and anything good and positive happening in your life. They are fired up about your achievements, and this is what's making them so bitter. And we have to understand that rivalry is also part of jealousy, and we've heard so many times about sibling rivalry. What I really believe is that there's a difference between basic sibling rivalry versus toxic abuse. Totally two different things. It's like apples and oranges, not the same. While it could be common for families to have sibling rivalry among brothers and sisters, we have to understand that when someone crosses the line, that's when it becomes abuse. That's when it becomes physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, oftentimes leading to PTSD or complex PTSD for the victims of abuse. This is something that is coming up in a lot of discussions on social media and in many books out there. And I think we must understand that a lot of our siblings, it's not really about sibling rivalry for them. It is more about abuse. Okay, let's move on. So let's discuss this. Jealousy is rooted to feelings of insecurity, fear, anger, and hatred, inadequacy in oneself, hopelessness, and, let's add to it, powerlessness. They can't stand that they can't control you. They're so mad at you because they can't control all this good, all this positive energy, all this wonderful accomplishments and success and love and adventure and all the good things coming into your life. Oh, they can't stand that they can't control it and stop it. And so they're so jealous and envious of you. Jealousy is also feelings of falling into a comparison trap. If they didn't compare themselves to you, they wouldn't have to be jealous. There's really no need for jealousy and hatred and envy. They choose it. They choose it. And over and over and over again, they find themselves comparing their life, their job, their relationships, their health, their finances, their dreams, their purpose, everything under the sun. They compare themselves with you, which leads to more jealousy. And lastly, jealousy is rooted to feelings of evil motives. So there's these underlying deep-seated intentions. The intentions are very demonic, it's very abusive, and it does involve evil actions, words, behaviors, and sometimes it can lead to real life crimes. Envy is part of jealousy. A lot of times they go hand in hand. We hear a lot about envious or jealousy. They're used interchangeably, but there is a slight difference. While envy is part of jealousy, envy is hatred and bitterness, just this deep, deep hate. They are so hateful towards people that have an advantage that they don't have. So there's something that you have. There's something about you. Maybe it's your empathy. Maybe it's your compassion. Maybe it's that you are a popular person. Maybe it's that you're very likable. Maybe it's that you're successful. Maybe it's that you have wonderful gifts, strengths, and talents, a lot of positivity into your life, and it really, really strikes a very negative chord within them in which they are so outraged at the good that's going on in your life. Next, we have to understand that jealousy and envy are evil and they're sinful. I'm not going to start preaching. I'm not going to get into the Bible, but what I will say is the Bible is filled with scriptures and verses about how God hates jealousy and envy, and that God says that anyone who is filled with such envy and hatred and bitterness, that they are not Christ-like, they are not of the Lord. And that is not his plan for their lives. It is actually the plan of the enemy. Next, we have to understand that when someone does have jealousy and envy, it does go hand in hand with passive-aggressive behaviors. These behaviors a lot of times lead to, the gaslighting, the manipulation, the smear campaigns, the retaliation, gossiping about you, telling lies about you, saying things that aren't true about you, or taking something that might be a teeny tiny truth and twisting it into this full-blown fabrication that is not true. Next is that when we are dealing with people such as our siblings and we start seeing things that we can't unsee, we look at their facial expressions, their gestures, their body language. I could definitely say, starting way back when, many years ago, when I started watching my siblings' body language and their facial gestures and non-verbal reactions during communication and family gatherings and so forth, that is when there were subtle cues speaking very loud and clear to me that something was not quite right. Now, I've had several close friends say to me repeatedly, your siblings are very, very jealous and envious of you. And for many years, I tried to just not really focus on it and just kind of push it aside. But you know what? You reach a point where you have to call the whole thing out. You have to call it out. And when I really take a good, hard look at everything that has happened, especially in the past 3 years, the core root is jealousy. The core root is hatred and bitterness and envy and the intent for harm. So let's move on with siblings. Now, when we're growing up, so starting from a very young age, we might notice that there's competition between the siblings. So maybe you're in a family where there's one or more siblings along with yourself, and you've noticed, everybody's competing for mom and dad's attention. Everybody's competing to see who has the best report card from school, who's getting high honors, who's really great at sports, or who's really good at music, or who's really good at art or some other skill or talent. And we notice this competition happening between siblings. And that is something that, while it may be part of the sibling rivalry, it might be very common, actually. I mean, I see it between other family members, and I hear about it through people talking and sharing their stories with me, that there is this competition. And again, we should not be comparing ourselves to anyone. It doesn't matter what they're good at. It doesn't matter what's going on in their life. We need to focus on our gifts and our talents and what we're good at, and we need to focus on our purpose, because that's how we bloom. That's how we flourish. That's how we transform ourselves, when we focus on us and take our eyes off what other people are doing, never mind what they're doing. We could be happy with their success. We could be happy for their promotion. We could be happy when they found the love of their life. And you know what? When I start really examining everything with my own siblings, I was happy when they found their lifetime mate, their partner for, eternal partner, they got married. I was happy for them. When things may have gone awry in their marriage and maybe things didn't work out, okay, maybe they got divorced, I felt sad. I didn't want to see them heartbroken, okay? And so I believe that I look at my intentions, I look at my motives, I look at the whole picture, and I see that I cared enough about them. I always placed them above my needs. I placed their happiness and their marriage and their health above mine. And I found out that that's what got me in trouble. When you are empathic, when you are a highly sensitive person, when you become somehow the scapegoat or the black sheep of the family, you could find out later on, down the road, way down the road, it's going to bite you in the rear end, because you're going to find out that people will use you and abuse you even more so when they know that you are caring and loving and giving and that you are a peacemaker. And I found out real fast that being a people pleaser and being a peacemaker was not helpful. It was not helpful. And so we must understand that if we're keeping peace with those who are stealing our peace, that is not a healthy boundary. Okay, so we should never ever lose our peace and lose our health and lose our purpose and lose who we are inside to make others happy. And oftentimes this whole thing with the hate spewing from the toxic siblings, with the jealousy, with the envy, with the gaslighting and the constantly bullying and harassment that goes on within these families, we sometimes lose ourselves. We become censored and silent. And oftentimes those people who are the black sheep, they're the scapegoat, they're abused, they will lay low. Oftentimes they learn for such a season, they may be quiet, and then at one point they'll awaken, they'll realize what happened, they'll realize what really did transpire in their relationships, especially with the siblings. And that's when they realize their siblings hate them. Their siblings hate them, and hate is a sin. It is awful. I mean, when you really take a good look at hate, it is evil, because there are so many destructive things that follow. When there is hate, the destruction that follows is like a malignant cancer. It is malignant. It takes over their life. Technically, they're hurting themselves too, because we have to understand what goes around comes around, and they are going to reap the consequences of the jealousy, of the hate, of the abuse, of the toxicity and the malignancy of this cancer within them. Next is we have to understand too that when we have siblings that may be jealous of us, underneath it is a layer of resentment. So I start looking into, okay, what's this all about? Well, it's wrapped in this pretty package of, I don't want to tell you and I don't want to admit, but boy, oh boy, am I resentful of you. And so I found out while I was writing my 5th book, Soul Cry, Releasing and Healing the Wounds of Trauma, I came to realize, there were so many moments of awakening, of new things coming to the surface, new realities, acknowledging what really did happen in the past. And what happened was that I definitely have one particular sibling who has always resented me. She resented that my mother expected her to babysit me when I was little. She resented that my mother gave her responsibilities and duties that were not really technically best suited for her because she was so young. And, look at this big picture here. Okay, so there's a mom and she's bar hopping and she's going from boyfriend to boyfriend, and she's a newly divorced parent, and she's just kind of letting loose and going wild. And she places these big responsibilities on the 2 older siblings and makes them and forces them to make dinner, to cook, to clean, to babysit younger siblings. And my goodness, they're only 9, 10, maybe 11 years old. I mean, we're talking, this is extremely inappropriate. But at the root of that, what's really inappropriate is that the siblings, instead of being mad at the person who's doing this, the mother, the narcissist, the abusive woman who has neglected and abused them, instead of placing blame where blame belongs, they shift the blame, they take it off the narcissistic mother, the abusive person, and they place it on the victims. So the younger siblings they're young, they're powerless, they are helpless. My goodness, I was only 3 and 4 years old. I didn't ask for it. Just like they didn't ask for it, well, neither did I. But yet they abused their authority. My mother gave them authority over me and the other younger siblings, and the 2 older siblings, they abused it. They would purposefully change the clock, and we would have to go to bed. We were little kids, and we would have to go to bed at 8 p.m. And I remember at 8 p.m. it was dark out. Well, on one occasion, I remember them playing a prank on the younger siblings and they switched the clocks and made it look like it was 8 o'clock when really it wasn't. And I remember I was wise enough to see that it's still light outside, something's wrong. So there I am, this young little girl, and yet I know deep down that something was wrong because it was still light outside. And my siblings, the older ones, were insisting, it's time for bed. And maybe that was minor. Actually, that was super minor compared to other things that did transpire through the years. But the point is that they abused their authority, and they were resentful that they were told by my mother that they had to babysit us, and they had to cook, and they had to clean, and they had all these obligations. And I admit that they never should have had any of that responsibility. But that's beside the point. I had nothing to do with it. I was just an innocent child. Next, we have to understand also that there's a lot of backstabbing going on. So when there's jealous, toxic siblings, there's the backstabbing, there's the rumors, there's the constant horrible behaviors happening. They could be stealing things from you, going into your bedroom or into your belongings, maybe your backpack or something that is yours, and they'll take it and they'll break it, or they'll use it and then they'll lose it, and then they'll be like, I didn't do that, and they'll lie about it. I mean, I remember so many times things of mine would turn up missing, broken, lost, stolen. They had a zillion excuses, but they never should have taken it to begin with. So we have to understand there is the backstabbing, there is the ganging up. Oh boy, with age comes wisdom, and boy, oh boy, can I really embrace that wisdom today to understand fully that as the youngest child of 5 girls, so there was 5 daughters, I'm number 5, I'm the youngest. So what happens when you're the youngest of a toxic, broken family is that you become easy prey. You are the youngest, so you are the one they are going to beat up. They're going to bully you. They're going to push you around. They're going to hurt you. Sometimes it might be verbally, other times it might be mentally, and in some cases, for some very unfortunate people, it could be sexually. We hear of this all the time, and it is nothing new. Jealous siblings has been going on from the beginning of time. Next is they're phony. They're so phony and superficial. So to your face, they'll be like, sir, be sweet, and oh, you're my favorite, and I love you, and all this wonderful stuff, and they'll like compliment you. Oh, your hair's so pretty. Oh, I love your new shirt. And behind your back, they hate you. They're speaking horrible, vicious, malicious words about you. They're gossiping. They're wishing harm upon you and your life. Next is that jealousy leads to revenge. So it's never just jealousy and then it just stops there. See, what happens is jealousy is like a cancer. It will become malignant. It will spew throughout their life. And what happens is it technically and very typically leads to revenge. They become vengeful. They are going to punish you because they hate you, because they're jealous of you. Maybe you are mommy's favorite, daddy's favorite. Maybe you were on high honors. Maybe you were a big football star or a cheerleader. Maybe you had musical talent and you're really good at playing instruments. Maybe you were the writer in the family, or you were the entrepreneur of the family, or you were something they are not. They will punish you for it because they are so envious of what you have, of something so special about you, something so unique about you, that they will stab you in the back at every possible opportunity. And this is something that I have experienced personally. Next is that as children, when we were dealing with sibling rivalry in the early days as youngsters, and we may have told our parents, maybe mom or dad, so-and-so's hurting me. They stole my coloring book. They did this, they did that. They lost my shoes. They wore my brand new shoes and they lost them. Yeah, that really did happen. And she knows who she is. The point is that oftentimes parents will take sides, or parents will decide to not take responsibility and to ignore it, to minimize it, to tell the kids to be quiet, to not resolve it. And what will happen is there will be resentment on both sides, because parents who don't resolve family quarrels, they're going to end up experiencing a lot more dysfunction in the family. If you just let this quarrel and this conflict go on and on and on and on, and you were talking from childhood to the teenage years to the adult years, sooner or later it is a bomb and it is going to blow up. And one way or the other, something will happen, and which typically the siblings will have a major blowout, and oftentimes it will lead to going no contact, because you can't resolve it, because it's gone on your entire life and you're fed up and you're done with siblings who are envious, jealous, and hateful. Next is that when I was a younger sister, and I'm the youngest, so I'm the youngest child, number 5, and my siblings took that, whole thing to do with the role they played. There was the one who was the oldest, there was the one who came behind her and somehow ended up with extremely bossy, control freak type of characteristics. And then there was the golden child, and then there was the forgotten child, and then there was me, who somehow ended up being the scapegoat. We didn't ask for these roles, somehow they happened, and I see it generation to generation. I see all the generational bondage way before my family. We have to understand too that while it's not always the youngest in the family, in some cases it is, because the youngest one is smaller, younger, they definitely aren't physically stronger, and they're easy prey. I have one thing I definitely recall, and it was the golden child who decided to make a confession many years ago, and I'll never forget her confession because it lines up with being jealous. And so she said that after I was born, she was only a few years old. And can you believe that she remembers this? But she remembers this as clear as if it was yesterday, that I was born right before Christmas. And my mom and dad must have bought her a baby doll with a cradle. And when they brought me home from the hospital, they took the baby doll out of the cradle and they put me in it. And my sister said she was so mad, she was so angry that my mother put me, this brand new, beautiful little baby, little Christmas baby, into the cradle. I don't think my mom meant any harm by it. I really don't. But my sister, from that point forward, think about it. I was a brand new baby. And from that point forward, she was resentful. She was jealous. And she enjoyed calling me the spoiled brat. So she gave me a nickname, Spoiled Brat. And all my life, I heard, you are a spoiled brat. And so I know many of you, whether you are the youngest or whether you're the oldest or whether you're the middle child or you're the forgotten child, wherever you may be in the family unit, many of you were called names. This is also very common. Next is that I think what is the hardest is seeing how things went from bad to outright abusive. And I could see, especially with everything that happened last year when my siblings did not inform me that my father was dying, and then they did not inform me that my father passed away, and they purposely, intentionally made sure I would not know about his funeral arrangements and this memorial that they had planned, and that I was not included in the plans. I was not welcomed. I think that this is a red flag for the deep-seated jealousy they have, that they were so jealous of me for my entire life. And there's so many times that I didn't want to think that this was true. You know, when friends would say to me, your siblings are so jealous of you, they're so envious of you, they can't stand you because they don't have what you have. And I tried to make sense of it, but now after all of this nonsense and coming like full circle now, I'm heading into, in the month of May, 1 year anniversary that my father passed away. The 1 year anniversary that started the malicious attacks by my siblings, the Facebook smear campaigns. Oh yeah, they thought they were so cute. Oh, let's just say what goes around comes around. They will reap everything that they have sown. We can't think that anyone, including siblings, can be toxic, can be jealous, can be hateful, and that they will never, ever have to be accountable for that. We have to understand that there is a long-term consequence for jealousy. Remember, jealousy is a sin and it's evil, and they will reap what they have sown. Next is that when someone is a sibling and they're very hateful towards their other sibling, whether it's their brother or sister, we have to understand that this jealousy, this envy, this bitterness, and the wrath and the destructive behaviors, it destroys relationships. But what it also says very loud and clear is that the person who is the hater, there's something very, very unhealthy going on with them. The passive aggressive behaviors, the psychological abuse, the bullying, the triangulating relationships, the mobbing and the stalking, the continual lashing out and purposely, intentionally trying to hurt the other sibling. This is not healthy. This is not healthy. And so when we really take a good look at it, we can understand that we can't change them. We can't necessarily stop them. We can't fix them. But what we can do is we could switch the focus off of them. We can release today their toxicity. And the kindest, most gentle thing we can do is to let go of this malignant cancer that's growing inside of them. It's like a contagious disease, and we don't want to be a part of it. And the kindest act of self-love and self-respect is releasing toxic people, including our family, and letting them go. They will have to someday deal with it. They will eventually have consequences that they will face, whether it's right now or someday eternally. And we must let them go, because the best thing we could do for ourselves is to focus on love and peace and harmony and compassion, and to think about how can I surround myself around others who lift me higher? How can I help others heal? And you know, healing isn't just about you healing and me healing. Healing is about together. We're stronger together, and together we're going to heal. And so today, give yourself grace if you're from a family who is hateful and bitter and jealous. Release them. Love yourself enough that you're going to protect yourself, you're going to stand up for yourself, you're going to speak out for yourself, and you're going to have healthy boundaries. And share with me, do you have toxic siblings who are envious, hateful, and jealous? Have they hurt you? Have they tried to harm you? Whether it's physically, mentally, psychologically, sexually, or any which way. Maybe some gaslighting too. If you'd like to share your stories about your jealous, toxic, envious siblings, feel free to do so at danaarcuri.com, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it and share our experiences, because I know that I'm not the only one who has experienced it. In the meanwhile, have an awesome weekend. Take care.